Grenades in Airsoft are pretty cool. It's a bit like icing on the cake that is Airsoft. Easy to carry, gives you flexibility to clear awkward angles, and they're just plain fun to throw. One of the latest Airsoft grenades to hit the market, this is the E-RAZ grenade from Z Parts in France. Now, there are already a few established BB grenades on the market, so this little guy is in for some tough competition. Let's take a look. We have 4 colors available: gray, OD, blue, and orange. Personally, I'd probably go with the orange as it's a little easier to spot in the field after a game. Packaging is a rather simple affair, but it's decently presented in a cardboard box with a hole to see the actual grenade inside. They seem to be really going for that modern hex look, and the design continues onto the grenade itself. Other than the grenade pin, there are no accessories in the box, not even a manual, so let's go over how it all works. To load the E-RAZ, you start by inserting the pin. Push down on the plunger and slide in the pin over top. Load up the gas as you would any gas magazine. Reservoir is pretty big, so aim for about 7 to 8 seconds. Load up the BBs through the port, 100 rounds in total. BBs are held in by an external O-ring. And that's all there is to it. When you're ready, pull the pin, yell your war cry of choice, and upon impact, 100 BBs will fly out in what can only be described as a rotated motion. A whirlwind of BB destruction. A typhoon of plastic. A hurricane of hit markers. Initial impressions are pretty good. I like that there's only 2 main parts to keep track of, and there's no disassembly at all to reload the grenade. Even then, I'd probably attach the pin to the grenade body with some paracord. Now, the one issue I did have was occasionally, if the mechanism doesn't fully fire, it'll still have a bit of gas inside. Now, I didn't know this at first, and I tried forcing in the pin, thinking it was just spring tension, which ended up scratching the plastic pretty bad. It's also a safety issue, so I'd recommend dropping the grenade a second time just to make sure it's empty of gas and BBs. If you can hear the ball bearing rattling inside that grenade body, you're good to go. One thing I really liked is just how grabbable these are. The sizing seems pretty perfect, and the beveled edge really sits well in my hand. There's no weird hot spots or angles that dig into your hand, and it slides really smoothly into pouches as well. Speaking of, we tested the E-RAZ to fit really well in the Firepower single M4 mag pouch. We tested it to fit well in the Condor grenade pouch, and the Condor single mag pouch is a tight fit but will work. I really wanted the 40mm pouch to work, but it's a super tight fit. One of the first things I noticed about the E-RAZ is just how lightweight they are. Coming in at 135 grams, it's less than half the weight of a standard high kappa mag, which comes in at 319. The entire body is polymer with only a few metal parts, namely the valve, pin, and ball bearing inside. Now, polymer doesn't seem like the best material for something designed to be thrown, but because it's so lightweight, through our testing, the polymer body held up just fine. I'm glad to see a shift towards lighter weight grenades. No one wants a heavy grenade dropped on their head or a metal body that could scratch a gun. Diving into the internals, the grenade comes apart with just a 15mm socket or pliers if you don't have one. The mechanism is quite simple. Essentially, a ball bearing is seated in a custom O-ring sealing in the gas. It's held in place with this little plunger, which the pin locks into place. With the pin removed, the bearing is still held in by a vacuum, but any lateral force breaks the seal, releasing the gas and BBs. Of course, the main concern I had was minimum activation height, so let's test that. For that, we'll need the Supreme Technical Assessment Impact Release System, or the stairs. We're testing this without BBs, but of course the mechanism works the same. We'll start with a hard surface. Starting with the 4th step, which is 80 centimeters, glad to see it had no issues. 3rd step is 60 centimeters, again, no issues. 2nd step is 40 centimeters, and it went off just fine. 1st step is 20 centimeters, and finally we have a failure to fire. Looks like 40 centimeters is about the minimum activation height on a hard surface. Now we'll simulate a softer carpeted surface. As expected, the 4th step still had no issues. 3rd step had the same success. With the 2nd step, it did trigger the grenade, but not enough to fully release the gas. Finally, with the 1st step, as expected, the grenade did not go off. Looks like the carpet raises the minimum height by about 20 centimeters. We also did the same test by standing the grenade vertically and pushing it off. The results were more or less the same, but what we did notice is that if it hits just the right angle, it'll go off at a lower height, and conversely, not go off at a higher height if it happens to land at a bad angle. That being said, the third and fourth steps seem to work every time. Of course, I'm sure you Milsim guys will want to know how this reacts to grass. Of course, grass is much softer, so we didn't expect it to work quite as low as on a hard surface. But surprisingly, it did trigger at about waist height, but not every single time. Shoulder height was pretty consistent, and of course, tossing it up in the air seemed to work fine. In normal gaming use, with some horizontal velocity as well, I'm sure this grenade will go off almost every time. Overall, I'm pretty impressed with this impact system. As for reliability, after some testing on pavement, it did pick up quite a few scratches, but after 50 or so throws, it still managed to function perfectly. And there you have it, the E-RAZ grenade. I think it's a pretty good design. It's got a decent spread, a pretty reliable trigger mechanism, and a really simple reload operation. I'm not here to tell you if this is better or worse than other options. I'll leave that up to you. But I will say, after spending some time with the E-RAZ, I'd have no problems carrying one in the grenade pouch. As always, thanks so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe for regular updates, and we'll catch you on the next one.